Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. We have an unboxing and we have more plants for the garden courtesy of Carole in deepest West Wales, which is probably getting a bit of a battering as we speak or as I film, on the grounds that Storm Agnes is passing up the west coast of the UK. Strange how that doesn't seem that far away, and yet it's far enough away. It's not even windy here, and yet they've got 70-80 mile an hour winds, heavy rain, and the whole of that coastline right up to Scotland is going to get absolutely battered during the day. Anyway, I'm not, so I'm getting away with it. So let's see what we can do then. Let's get some air into the box. Now the plan is to get these plants out and have a look at them and put them straight back in the box, because I've got to have a planting plan, because these are not the only plants that are going in the garden, and so I've got to have a think about where things are going to be so that they don't all get in each other's way and grow over each other and get all cluttered up. So that's the plan today, is to have a look and see what I've got, try and identify it. I have my list. That's what's in the box, but there are some of these things I don't know. I've never owned or had in a garden before, so I might not be able to identify all of them, but by filming it, those that I can't identify, Carole can. So she can always say, oh, that one at 20 minutes, 22 seconds was so-and-so, so-and-so. So it's possible. We may get round the problem that I might not know all of these. Now these have only recently been lifted off the ground. They are bare rooted. They need to get back in the ground as soon as possible. So right, and there are labels on the bags to identify what they are. Let's get that one out of the way, because that won't go back in. So as long as the labels haven't come off, I know what they are. And as I said, some of these, you know, hopefully will go back into the ground reasonably quickly. Right, so those are Michaelmas daisies. These are tall. I'm not sure those are going to go in the gravel beds, but there's certainly two types of these. Now this is, oh no, not that, there's two types of something else. That's Michaelmas daisies. I've got to look up whether those are going to go, see if there's any blooms that haven't gone over. That's what they look like, yeah? So very attractive for bees and butterflies, they both like these. And that's how tall they get, obviously, and I need to find out, can those grow? Are they drought tolerant? Will they grow in sun in the gravel beds? Because if not, they can go at the back of the border, yeah? So that's one, tall, and the next one is tall. Right, now this is phlox. This is tall and this will go in the border. I don't think that's suitable to go in the gravel beds. But again, I will check. If that's drought tolerant and can put up with dry spells, don't forget the gravel beds are capable of becoming incredibly dry and hot, like a Mediterranean environment. But I don't have to let them do that. I have got a hose, yeah? So I might have plants that are not necessarily truly drought tolerant that I have to water in dry spells, as opposed to just letting them get on with them, you know, with themselves. Anyway, that's phlox, and that's the deep pink one. I don't know whether it's phlox or phloxes. I don't know whether that's one clump or whether there's several there. We'll find out when we get them out of the bag. Right, so, right. Now this is the other phlox, which is a pale pink and white, and there are still a few blooms left on there. So there's a couple of blooms you can see there. There weren't any on the deep pink one. So again, it's either a large clump or several clumps. This has all been cut back, as is the nature of quite a few of these plants at this time of year. As you head into autumn and the blooms start to fade, you cut them hard back, and they all come up again the next year, nice and fresh, nice new leaves, and bloom their heads off because they were cut back hard the year before. That's the nature of these types of plants. Right, we got a fern here, a little fern with something else in it, which two something else's in it. So something else's. That, I'm not quite sure what that is. It looks like a geranium. That's an aquilegia and a fern. So it looks like there's multiple plants in there. Ferns and aquilegia. Except for that's not a fern. It's not an aquilegia either, so it's probably a geranium. If you've got them in your garden, they get everywhere. Right, so that's that bag. And this bag. Now this could cause, well, I won't say it'll cause a problem, but it'll cause me a bit of confusion as to where to plant it, because this is primrose stroke primula. Well, in my mind, I want to differentiate between our true native primroses and anything that isn't. Because anything that isn't, I want to keep separately so that they don't naturally hybridize and I lose the native primroses. So we'll look into that. There certainly won't be any blooms on them this time of year, but these are good plants. These will. Can I undo the bag, or do we have to get a blade on it? Ooh, just about. Yeah, just to show you, these are incredibly good plants. I'll just take one out. You know, these have been grown on through this year. These are good plants, yeah. So these will take nicely, get them in the ground. But they're okay in these bags for a while. They're incredibly damp. I've got a feeling it might have been raining during extraction. So they're damp, and as long as they're kept cool and, you know, out of bright light and everything, they can stay in the bags for a while, but not for too long. Right, and the next one. This is violets and aquilegia, so I won't get those out. That's our native violets, and they flower incredibly early in the year, and again some aquilegias. So I'm going to try and get some aquilegias going in some other places. I'm limited on places, but I have a thought. The hedge along the left hand side of the garden, looking out from here, is effectively a hedge now. Well, it will be as it grows on, it's getting there, which means it only gets like morning sun. Well, it's a gravel bed under a hedge, so it's not going to get sun all day long. Well, that gravel bed could be raked out to a reasonable depth and actually have some decent compost put in it. And then it's not a gravel bed anymore, is it? The gravel can be put back on top to look like a gravel bed, but underneath there's some depth there with some decent soil, which allows me to grow some other things. Does that sound like a good plan? It's only a plan at the moment. Right, these are campanulas. So these are good ground cover plants. They have, you can see through the bag, purple bell-shaped blooms on them. They're very shallow rooted under normal circumstances. They just grow across the surface of the ground, and those, it or them, depending on what's in the bag, are destined to go along this edge here, because this edge here has no edging. So, you know, it's capable, the dirt can just keep rolling down, especially when it's helped by mojo. So the idea is to get some plants in there to establish an edge, and if they bloom as well, brilliant. So that's what they're for. I'm just going to pop them straight back in. And then in here, these are forget-me-nots. So these are nice early spring bloomers and incredible self-seeders. And round my previous house I had forget-me-nots growing in gravel beds that came up year after year after year, self-seeding themselves each time, because these are annuals. So they seed, they grow, they bloom, they seed again, and then they come up the next year. And they don't tend to survive the winter as such. So forget-me-nots, so that's new. We haven't got any of them at the moment. Most of this is new stuff. Ferns I've already got some. I've already got some aqualegias and some violets. Primroses we've got. There's another bag of, oh no, that's a bag I've just put back in. The phlox and the Michaelmas daisies are both new. I haven't got any of those yet. So yeah, forget-me-nots, that's a new type of plant. And then this is Achillea and Valerian. Right, now I know which is which because the Achillea has the feathery foliage, and that has flat top blooms. I'll try and steal some pictures off the internet to put pictures of what the blooms are like. Well, on some of them. And then the Valerian, I had one of these in the earlier lot of plants from Carole that did get planted into this bed here, and I believe that was the only thing that died. I'm not sure. It might have died back and is capable of growing back up again. I don't know. Trouble is, I forgot where I put it. And out in the garden, you won't be able to see it, and I'm not going to try and film it, is a hummingbird hawk moth flitting around trying to find something to feed on. They do come into the garden. It is one of the day flying moths, very attractive. If you search back in my videos on the gardening channel, you will find that. I think it was called A Visitor as a video title. Yes, so we've got Achillea and Valerian. The Valerian could be an addition to one I've already got that I think I may have lost, or it may be a replacement because I did lose it, and that's undetermined. The trouble is, when things die back due to heat and drought, which was what I was having to put up with last time, I planted all those plants from Carole last time and we had a heat wave. That's all right. I'm getting distracted because there's birds all over the garden at the moment, and there's a tree creeper. I ought to try and film that. That is a rare bird to get in a garden. I'll see if I can turn the camera around and lift the camera up. It's going up the trunk of the dead tree. Now it's coming down the trunk of the dead tree. It's on the right hand side, and if it comes round the front of the tree again, I will try and zoom in on it. I don't think I'm going to get it, quite honestly. It's gone round the other side of the trunk. It probably saw me move, so it'll be on the far side of the trunk now. It's a shame. I'd like to have filmed that. And that is a new species for the garden, tree creeper. Looks like, when you see them, they look like a little mouse running up the trunk, and then you realise that they've actually got feathers. They are a sort of browny colour with a sort of buff colour underneath. Really thin curved beak for getting in cracks in bark. Anyway, looks like I've missed it. I keep seeing it. I can see it now to the left of the trunk round the back of the tree. But it's not in a place where I can zoom in at the moment. I'm just going to wait. See if it comes into a place, because it was actually on a small branch then. Let's see if it comes back round the trunk. No, we could be here all day waiting for that. It could have flown off to another tree by now and I don't even know. Right, let's get back to what we were doing. Sorry about waggling the camera all over the place. Somewhere there. I've nearly finished this box anyway. What do you mean this box? There's another one? Yes, there's another box. So, yes. That's the story of the plants and what we've got. As I said, Achillea, that's a new one. And that definitely is drought tolerant. That will go in a gravel bed somewhere. Even though it's actually quite a tall plant, it still grows in, you know, arid conditions basically. And if I have to water plants, then so be it. You know, I have a hose. It's not the end of the world to have to go round with a hose to keep your plants alive. So there we go. And as I said, I'm going to, because I'm limited really to this area and one other small area, the other side of those bushes, I'm going to create some more planting areas by actually digging out some of the gravel bed to a reasonable depth and putting some reasonable soil in there to plant things in, and the gravel can then be spread back over the top. I think that will work. That will allow me to have some different types of plants that are not necessarily drought tolerant, if you see what I mean. Right, I don't have to write all sorts in that bag. I'm trying to put these plants in without, so that they've all got their own place on the bottom of the box, so they're not sat on top of each other, so that nothing gets squashed then. So I don't need to worry about shutting the lid on the box. All I need to do is worry about putting them in the box so that I can carry them and put them somewhere else. Right, so we've got some more planting to do. Our kneeling stool has arrived to aid and abet such planting, but I will use this video now to assess plant sizes and habitats by looking them up on the internet and stuff, to try and make a plan for the garden. Now I can visualise the garden in my head. I don't need to draw it or anything like that, but I do want a plan. I do want to know which plants are going where, so that when I get out there to do the planting, the thinking has already been done sitting in the comfort of here with a coffee, which I don't seem to have. Well, that's a flaw in the plan, isn't it? Straight away. No coffee. I was busy. Okay, box number 1. Box number 2 will follow. This is good stuff. Thanks a lot, Carole. I know there's been work done to get those plants out of the ground into bags with labels to Postman Pat. Has taken effort and work. So thanks a bunch. I mean, it's a strange concept. Gardeners like to garden. The reason for it doesn't matter quite so much. We're strange people, gardeners. We just like to be gardening and doing stuff. And this, you could almost say this gave Carole an excuse to get out and root around in parts of her garden that she might not have actually done any gardening in for a while, because they're planted up areas. They're already done and finished. So anyway, thanks a bunch. Appreciated. And quite a few of these plants will come into their own next year. They won't do much this year now. We're nearly into October. You know, stuff has finished blooming for this year. It's not going to come out again now. It's just in some cases die back or go dormant, ready to spring up again next year when the better weather turns up again, which it will do. Right. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.